All right. So I'm not gonna wait a long time, but I will give some people on Twitter just a few minutes to join. I'll just go grab a drink in just a few minutes. Everybody, do me a favor. Like and retweet my tweet though. I'm gonna post it just to spread the word in my in Discord. Go to Vader's posts. I'm putting it there. All right, I'm gonna grab a drink and then we'll dive in. Again, for those who didn't see my comments in the Discord chat, um, I dozed off sitting right at my desk, so I'm really tired. I heard the baby crying already. She's gonna be up any second, and Jenny's gonna need me to give her a bottle. So, really quick stream. I just want to show you guys um, the models we've been tracking the last few days, even though I haven't been making any big moves on trades. I've shared my updates with you, and my models have all been really on point. So I want to remind you what we're looking at there, and then what the different potential realities we can see come to fruition. With the fundamentals we discussed, different markets can react to the presidential politics differently. They can react to vaccine news differently. So we'll briefly mention that. And then we'll look at some of the TA models and just refresh everybody's memory on what we're looking at for short term and long term on the majors as far as the big extended correction we're going to be seeing. And then we'll see if there's any short term trades that I still have open that need some adjustments. I'll tell you right now, since my account was locked on BitMax and I had a bunch of capital over there, my vet trade, for instance, broke out for 35%. I know a lot of people got in with me. Perfect spot to move my stop loss up. It would be under this really, really key support at 10.5, right there. So it's 1.05 cents. That is a really, really great key support. I'll show you that. And then my VTHO trade, even though I got wicked out early on my short-term trade, I did keep a small bag for a long-term thing, and that actually did... most recently the big wick took me up for a 30%. If you remember, my initial breakout call did 45% in just a matter of, what was it, 36 hours or so. So that was a really great model. It worked really well. I think there's still a lot of potential here, so I'm holding it as a longer term trade. You can move your stop loss up. In my case, I'm just setting it to risk free. I can lock in some profits. I just haven't done it yet, but I can show you where we're turning in that one as well. And then if we see anything else that's a good trade right now, maybe I'll get into some new stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've given people enough time to join from Twitter, so I'm going to go grab a drink, and then we'll get into everything I just explained a little bit more closely. And if you have any questions, let me know. Don't, I don't want people from like Twitter to start blowing me up with questions in the chat on YouTube. So if you're in the group, for people who are in Flux Trading Group, use our Discord chat and ask me whatever questions or comments you have in our crypto chat channel. That way I don't get bogged down with non-members asking me questions. But if there are people from Twitter who have questions, you can use the YouTube chat if you want to ask me something. And I may have time to take a few questions. We'll see. For those who just came in late, I said I'm really tired. I got a newborn I'm taking care of. And, the wife's going to need me to give her a bottle soon. I'm really tired as it is. So I'm going to do a short stream. A short stream for me is usually an hour. So I'm going to try to keep it much shorter than that. So I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll get underway. All right, get back into it. So, for those who came in later, I was explaining a few things. So, I'm not going to spend too much time on stuff, but let's dive into at least a quick refresh on the midterm, long-term models. You guys mostly know my Stoke model. We can just take a quick look at that, how that's coming together. And then we can discuss the fundamentals. The last couple live streams we talked about how the fundamentals at play here can change things up quite a bit with the election, with coronavirus. So let's do a refresher on that as well. Yo, what the hell? Come on, guys. Crew from the group. I asked you guys to like and retweet my post, and you guys didn't. It's not cool. Troll everybody. Alright, now I trolled everybody in the group sufficiently. So, what should we do first? Let me think. Let me quickly show you Ethereum. Now, we talked about Ethereum has been a really great model as a primary analysis tool to trace the entire market. It's been far more relevant than BTC. A lot of the BTC models have kind of gone off into their own universe, and when that happens, when you're disconnected and you don't have the ability to use BTC to predict overall market trends, then just find a substitute, and sometimes that's one of the other majors. In this case, Ethereum has been on point. So as we've seen these trend reversals on Ethereum, bullish to bearish, bearish to bullish, sideways corrections, things like that, it's been relatively consistent with the rest of the market. The altcoin market has been following along with Ethereum and letting her take the lead, and it's always one of the majors. Usually it's Bitcoin. So of late, Bitcoin's been kind of doing her own thing. Sometimes she'll go on a little bit of a run while the altcoins settle or the altcoins correct a bit, and Ethereum is more in line with the altcoins. So I've been using Ethereum as an overall trend indicator, but still looking at Bitcoin in case I'm doing Bitcoin trades. So in this context, if you look at Ethereum, you'll see we still have a strong trend, and we're developing a pennant here. And there are a couple ways to analyze this pennant, which we will get into in a second. Now I had my really large trades. This chart doesn't show it. I mean, this chart shows all my other massive trades on Ethereum, which I've been making a killing on. Look at these entries. Surgical precision. So my Ethereum trades have been spot on, but my most recent one from the other night, when did I buy? I bought in after we had bounced. We were already on the way up quite a bit, probably up, definitely above $400. But still, I think I made probably 12% or so, and I had I think that was the 25x leverage trade. Now that trade was one of a few trades. I moved some extra capital over to BitMax. For those who don't know, people from Twitter maybe, one of my tools that I utilize to manage my risk effectively is diversifying my assets, not just getting into different investments and different assets, different trades, and diversifying in that context, but spreading your capital out across different accounts and across different exchanges. It reduces your exposure because if one exchange were to get hacked or get shut down, you don't lose all of your capital. If one of your accounts gets hacked, God forbid, you don't lose all of your capital. So I moved over a bunch of capital to BitMax, which I actually like. BitMax has always been very stable and very reliable. It's very trustworthy. I've talked to the CEO personally a few times. I've helped them out identifying some bugs along with their dev team and the CEO. But they had a major crash. Everything they said was honest and truthful. They came back. It took several days. They kept delaying it. It ended up taking 3.5 days, I think, maybe even almost 4 days. But they're now back online, and everybody was speculating that they had got hacked and they were lying and they were just trying to figure out a way out of it. Blah blah blah. Turns out they were being 100% honest. I mean, there might have been some shenanigans there with what they were telling us about exactly what happened. They weren't very forthcoming and transparent. They were just saying they had a major issue with a third-party vendor, but none of that matters at this point because they are back. Now, I'm taking my funds off. I'm not going to keep my funds on BitMax. I may get back onto BitMax in the future just to get one specific asset here or there. Like if there's one altcoin that's only available on a couple exchanges, maybe I'll move some money back onto BitMax, but primarily I'm not going to be doing trading on BitMax. My capital is just not safe there anymore given what happened here. Even though they came back and it worked out okay, I got extremely lucky. I would have lost tens of thousands of dollars if we had corrected. If Ethereum had dropped back down to $400, I would have lost $30,000 or $40,000. So obviously, very, very, very risky to trust them moving forward. So at least for the foreseeable future, I will not be trading on BitMax. Now that said, I did have some trades on there that I'm now able to access again. Ethereum is one of them. Now Ethereum looks like it's going to correct. If we take a look and see where the other alts are, you'll notice a lot of them have a similar configuration where they're developing this pennant formation here. Let's see, we could probably pick out some of those. So you'll see there's a bunch like here. Not all of them, obviously, but like here. We had that run up and a correction, and now we're forming a bit of a pennant where we have trendline resistance up top, trendline support down below, and a lot of them are like this. Not all of them, but a lot of the alts that bounce, retrace, forming that pennant formation. Same with Matic, same with COS, same with TRX. So a lot of the alts are matching up pretty closely, as you can see, right? Very, very similar. Here's FTM, trendline resistance, trendline support, flagpole. Very similar formations. So there's some consistency there. We may be able to use that if we're looking for a particular type of trade. We might be able to say, all right, well, if we're getting this sort of action on Ethereum, we can expect the other alts to follow suit, or at least relatively closely follow suit. Now, as far as what I expect to happen with Ethereum, if we look at the Stoke models, which have been extremely accurate of late, we were maxed out and we were pumping. Now, we've talked about this before. When the Stoke gets up to this level and you're in that overbought range and it just keeps moving sideways like that, that's a post-technical bull run where it's beyond what the TA can tell you because you're already maxed out and you're already overbought. And at this time frame, looking at the 4-hour chart, essentially you are post-TA. The technical analysis on that 4-hour chart using the Stoke models will not really be able to help you. So in that case, you could pull up to a higher time frame to get some more information. In this case, you could do that. Now, if you look at the daily on Ethereum, you'll see we're getting a bearish reversal here. But this is one of the areas where the fundamentals come into play. So that's a good segue into that. We talked about this in the last few streams, how with the way the election was coming together, there were a few different ways it could play out. I thought that, well, if we're not really sure and if the election's contested, that uncertainty would be bad. Now, because the media is so ridiculous and evil and dishonest, it's really not a big deal that Trump doesn't want to accept the election and he wants to contest some of the results because of some indication of fraud. Now, is there enough fraud to overturn the election? Probably not. Is there fraud? 100%. There's a ton of evidence of fraud. So what the media keeps saying is that there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Widespread voter fraud. They keep using that term. Nobody's suggesting it's widespread. What they're suggesting is that there's enough small amounts of fraud. Sometimes it's widespread, but mostly it's certain areas, very surgical and very targeted. There's smaller pockets of fraud that can turn the election in those small areas, right? But what the media is doing is they're kind of painting it differently and making it seem like this is crazy. It's really not. There's a legal process for it. It's not like the president's going to barricade himself in the White House. He's going to go through this process. They're going to do some investigations. If they can find enough votes that they can change the course of the election, then that's what they're going to do. If they can't find enough votes and they can't find enough evidence of voter fraud to justify a change in the election, then it's going to be certified with Biden as the winner and the president will concede. But the media, because of how evil they are, will try to drive American policy, and they'll decide who the president is. We don't get to pick the president. The states don't get to certify the election in those states to pick the president and pick who won. The media wants to say, hey, it's our call. We say who won, and that's what they've essentially been doing. So for all intents and purposes right now, we're not really worried about that uncertainty where the election's contested and that causes turmoil in markets. We talked about how markets are connected. So when you see something big happen that can drive activity in equities and commodities markets, you very well may see the same exact thing happen in crypto. And it's not always correlated, but more often than not it is, because big events like that can have that bleed over effect across all different markets. If people are taking money out of different markets because they need liquidity and they need cash, then they'll be doing that regardless of what they're invested in. So with the election, we don't have the uncertainty thing. Now, Biden coming in is not going to be good for the stock market. He's going to impose much higher taxes. There's going to be a tax increase. There's going to be additional regulation and the potential for lockdowns. So the market is not going to react kindly to the Biden presidency. That said, right now the market pumped today like a boss because of the election, not the election, because of the vaccine news. So if we can get this vaccine up and running, essentially the reason why the market was so bullish based on that, what that means is we don't have to worry about Biden doing any shutdowns or anything, because if we do have an effective vaccine, perhaps we can mitigate the virus without having to get into shutdowns, which he thinks will solve it, which obviously they won't. Every country around the world has been hit by the virus the same. Trump was not Lord Commander Supreme President of the United European States of Asia and America. He's the President of the United States, and all the other world leaders around the world had problems the same as we had in their countries. It's a contagious, very contagious version of the flu that's very deadly to older people, virtually asymptomatic across the board in 99.9% of cases for children. But that's just the way it is. But because of how the politics and media work, obviously people are fed a bunch of bullshit on that. But he wants to push lockdowns. That won't be as much of an issue if we do have a vaccine. So for that reason, the market did react very positively today. We could see that continue. So depending on how the news cycle is, depending on if we get a story about how they're implementing a distribution plan for the vaccine and every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get it within 90 days or something. If something like that were to happen, we could see the stock market pump 20% over the course of a week, which will bleed over directly into other markets like our cryptocurrency market. So you want to be aware of that when you're looking at these analyses, because we're seeing an extremely bearish model forming that we've been tracking for months and months and months. Going back months and months and months, we've been waiting for this big extended drop that I said is definitely going to happen, and it still will. I'm absolutely certain of it. I'm extraordinarily confident about it. If you look at the longer term models that we've been looking at together for months now, specifically if you look at the monthly, we are quite overbought and just got a bearish reversal coming back down. Now, what you'll see is what we have is one of those zigzag effects where we went up, reversed, right, came back down, and then started to pump again. And then that subsequent pump could potentially cause a zigzag exit where you come down ever so slightly, zigzag down, right back up again, and you can continue the bull run. So this isn't 100% guaranteed that this is going to continue down right now. Again, when you're looking at the monthly chart, if this is one candle away from dumping, that could be a full month from now. So if we're just 2 candles early, if what we're looking at right now is the start of this bearish trend, but it's going to take 2 candles to really form, 2 candles to really get into that reversal and start heading south. If that were to happen, um, 2 candles in this case would be 2 months, right? So it's hard to pinpoint that. It's virtually impossible to pinpoint that from a timing perspective. So all I can do is focus on the shorter term trades, make some money on short term trades, look at the longer and midterm analyses, and see if I can come up with some longer and midterm trades. But I can't essentially short the market based on that. What I could do to protect my assets, since we are getting close to that point, we're getting very close to that bearish model. The last time we had this bearish reset, reminder for those who haven't heard me talk about it in a while, we retraced 72%. That was over from the top to May's bottom, 72% drop over 9 bars. So over the course of 9 months, essentially, over the course of 9 months, we went down 72%. And then the time before that we were this overbought and then corrected was the big correction that started in 2018. Yeah, so that was a 84% drop over the course of a year. That was that big long-term extended correction over the course of a year. So we are at some point in the near future heading into a long-term extended correction, but there are several ways that can play out. We could get a massive bull run to get us to all-time highs before that happens. It's just too hard to say, and that's why I haven't been banking on it. Instead, what I did, I've talked about this in my recent streams, all I've really done is I've moved a lot of my assets that were in cold storage, a lot of my longer term trades. I had a long term, a bunch of Bitcoin and a bunch of Ethereum and a bunch of BCH that were longer term holds. I moved those from cold storage, not all of it, but a good amount of it. I moved from cold storage onto a bunch of my different exchange accounts. That way I can apply a stop loss in case the market were to start tanking. So, for instance, if instead of the example I gave you before with the hypothetical, if tomorrow we find out, hey, the vaccine actually won't work for COVID because it morphed and now the new strain is resistant, so the vaccine won't work. And on top of it, the Biden is certified as the winner, and he says that on day one he's locking down the entire country. Well, if that happens, the entire market's going to crash. Every single financial market in the world would crash. And coronavirus black swan event from earlier this year would look like nothing. That would especially happen to our markets, including the cryptocurrency market. So a lot of things can happen here. Again, I'm focusing on the shorter term stuff, but you need to be aware of the longer term stuff to prepare. So if that means moving your cold storage long term investments onto an exchange so you're prepared if you do have to sell, or so that you can quickly set a stop loss in case the market starts to turn south, you probably want to do that. So if I'm looking at the shorter term stuff to focus on the short term trading, I don't have to worry about the monthly. On the way down, though, it's worth taking a peek at the weekly. The weekly, there's a good chance, based on how the weekly is timing out right now, that we could be starting another weekly leg down at the very least, even if we don't get into that big monthly. That big monthly retrace, like I said, could take several months. Plus, there's that potential for a bullish reversal given where we are now. But I think this is going to reverse and come back down. So you can see you had the blue line crossed over, right? And then it turned back up, and it looks like it's about to cross back bullish. The blue line is going to go back over the orange line, right? So on the Stochastic oscillator, if that happens, then that's terminating the bearish reversal and extending the bull run up until it can make the next attempt to make that move down. Now, looking into the future, again, this comes back to my time machine analogy that we always use. By looking at the different time frames, my different tricks of using different time frames to look at the different Stochastic models, you'll see that if you pull down to the weekly, we are heading into an extremely, extremely bearish scenario here. So every time we max out on the Stochastic on the weekly, we get a correction. Just this one right here. So this from top to bottom was a 64% dump. Top to bottom, right? Then bottom to top on the Stochastic, corresponded to a bottom to top bull run on price for 155% run up, and then top to bottom on the Stoch corresponded in this case to a much, much smaller correction of only 14%. And then another pump on the way up, pump on the way up along with the Stoch, Stoch on the way down resetting, Stoch on the way down resetting, and that reset, the last one, here we go. So, run up, most recent one now, but the one before that we had this run up, and then this correction back down was a 20% dump. So we had this run up, bearish reversal, Stoch came down, that shifted momentum, momentum reset all the way down, we dumped 20% before starting that next bull run up, which was right here. Now we're maxed out again and about to turn south and come back down. So this downward bearish retrace, it depends how things play out. The last several times, those bearish retraces were pretty minor. We would have a big run up and then a small retrace. Big run up and a much smaller retrace. If we get a big run up here and a smaller retrace and stay above 14, stay above 13.5 at the very least, we could get another big push up. So there are several ways where this can, several areas where this has the potential to remain bullish and not make that bearish turn, but we'll see. So, assuming that we're not making any longer-term trades, again, I'm really confident that we're looking really bearish. For those who just showed up, because a bunch of people just jumped to the stream, you can rewatch this back later, but I was talking about how the FA, the fundamentals of the election and coronavirus vaccine news and stuff like that, interacts with the TA. And the TA models here on the weekly and the monthly charts using my Stoch model, which is probably the most accurate single indicator model you'll ever find, is suggesting there's going to be a really strong retrace here. We're getting into a very bearish scenario. However, especially for the longer term outlook, we could extend this with another push up if we get more good news about a vaccine and things like that. That could drive all the other markets. That could also drive the crypto market up for a final bullish push, maybe get us up to the 20K area before we get the big extended correction. That big extended correction is happening. I can't pinpoint the exact precise top, but it is coming. And once we are underway, once we start dumping 10 or 15% on Bitcoin, you're going to want to get out and expect that to continue for several months. When that happens, I'm obviously going to short, but there's a lot of variables at play here with the fundamentals and the election and the virus, so we'll have to take a step back from the longer term stuff and wait for that to play out. Now, if we're looking at the shorter term stuff, now that we've covered weekly and the monthly, you'll see on Ethereum again, obviously you can't see with all my shit on there. Let's go back to the daily. Here we go. Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. All right, well, let's go back to the shorter term stuff. I forgot what I was even saying, but look at the daily. Now, on the daily, we have the same pennant formation that's happening in everything else. Trendline support, trendline resistance. Now, in this case, it's 50-50. It could go either way, but since we're looking at a few bearish indicators, I'm going to suggest this is probably going to break down. If it does break up, it's going to be a fundamentals-based breakup and not based on technicals, because the technicals here are screaming corrective wave. We have the daily Stoch turning south. Now, that's just like I showed you with my other models. Look at this. The Stoch runs up, price runs up. Stoch comes back down and resets. The price comes back down and resets. Reset of 7%. Bottom to top on the Stoch, which would be right here. Bottom on the price to the top on the price. 60% run up. Retrace on the Stoch, top to bottom. Retrace on the Stoch from right here down to the bottom of the Stoch right there. 12% dump. Pump back up, bottom to top. Big run up of 26%. And then dump back down would start right now. And we could come... We could get pretty close to... Trying to see if that would be a good target for that correction. So that's really hard to say, but we could correct as much as 15% here. Theoretically, we can correct all the way down to this trendline support, that old pink one. So that's something to watch there. I'm pretty sure we're going to go bearish on this thing. Now, I'm going to move up my stop losses on things. I only have a few open trades. Everything had been closed out for a while, but we have my Ethereum trade. So in this case, I'm going to take profit. And then I have to figure out exactly where to place my stop loss. And I got to go double check when my entry was. I'll have to look in the group when I announced it a few days ago. Before I do that, let me show you on VET, for instance. I already set my SL on this bad boy. And my SL here at 105 right there is my SL is just below that support. So my SL is like 104.2, but I did take profit. So I sold about 40% of my position. Let me put this into a chart so everybody in the Discord group can see it. So I never labeled this, but my SL has about 14.5% profit locked in. So this is where my new SL is. Jenny's calling me. She's probably going to tell me the baby's up and she needs me to give her a bottle, in which case I have to cut the stream short. We got a 30% breakout on this, obviously, so that was beautiful. So I ended up selling for 25% profit for 40% of my position. I'm holding another 60% of my position, and I have 14.5% profit locked in with my stop loss right around here. Let me just call Jenny back and see if she needs me to take the baby. Stand by a second, guys. Hey, you there? I couldn't hear you. Is she up? All right. Are you feeding her now? Do you have her? She's just starting to fidget. Okay, no, I'm coming up right now. All right, guys. I got to give the baby a bottle. So do you want to keep the stream going and we can look at a bunch of charts and see if there's any new entries? I can essentially show you what I figured out with my model on these trades that I'm still in now. Now, these are all essentially just like Ethereum, look like they need to correct a bit. And if you look at the 4 hour, well, if you look at the daily, we're pretty high on the Stoke, the weekly too, but I'm not worried about that. We have a really bullish weekly on a lot of the altcoins. The altcoins are super bullish right now. So I can break that down for you as well. I don't know if I should go give the baby a bottle and then come back and we'll finish the stream, or if I should just stop the stream and then we can start a new stream in like 30 minutes after I give the baby a bottle. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. But I have to run up and get her, so. Yeah, let's do that. I'll cancel the stream. I'll start a new one. Check Twitter and check the group for everybody in Flux Trading Group. I'll let you guys know there as well. Hopefully, as long as the baby cooperates, takes the bottle, and goes back to bed, I'll be able to do another stream. So I'll post another link both on Twitter and in the group. If she's really frisky and she's just going nuts and won't stop and won't burp and won't cooperate, then I'll probably just not have to do any more streaming tonight, and we'll have to go into one tomorrow as well. There might not be any good new trade opportunities anyway, so I'll look while I'm giving her a bottle. I'll check and see if there's anything out there, and if there is, I'll probably do a stream with you, because if there are some potential entries with her that at least have enough room to make some money on, I want you guys to get in them with me. So, all right, let me go get the baby. I'm going to kill the stream, and we'll start a new one in a bit, all right? Thanks, guys. Sorry.